this is a moment in time right now. This might not be on every podcast.
Yeah.
But at this moment, we're doing something called decent exposure.
Right.
Which means
we're going to expose.
Well, yeah, it's the decent thing to do in the words of Bubbles. Yeah. Here's the thing. I was telling you this earlier.
We've had quite a few of these. We didn't call it that.
Right.
But we've had quite a few of these segments throughout our pod.
Yes, which is essentially
pharmaceutical industry.
It's the exposure of some kind of wool being pulled over the eyes of essentially American people or people in the world.
Right. And it's like basically common accepted stuff.
Yeah.
Common accepted practices or things that society has just gotten used to. But
or society didn't even know that at some point got snuck through in some legislation.
But there's some nefarious purposes or agendas behind some of the things that people just accept as like just whatever. Yeah,
and here's the thing that I was telling you a little bit about it earlier, but it really is just like it kind of drives me nuts, man. That like so we have our camera system here, which is
pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet. It's cool. It's awesome, and feel very blessed and thankful to have it. But obviously, my wife has like the best of the best camera that you can get for her business, and she has multiple times come in and done video for the podcast with it.
Yeah,
and has offered like, use it for your podcast. Yeah, right. So we've used it.
Always
a few
looks
times.
Nice.
Looks fantastic. Great picture. Perfect quality. Use it a few times. We get in here, and all of a sudden the camera stops. Yeah, we get in here in the pod.
It's
and it just stops recording at 29 minutes and 59 seconds. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, it's got to be a setting on the camera, right? No, it's not a setting on the camera. This is where, as you say, I believe to be nefarious activities of, guess who?
This ought to be good.
The federal government.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason
they never do anything bad.
Right. Well, I guess we will disagree on that.
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah. But here's why my wife's, I don't know, $8,000 camera setup can't record more than 29 minutes and 59 seconds, even though it physically can record for as long as you want it to, is because the federal government once upon a time came out and said, now, wait a minute. People are going to pay more money for a video camera than they are just a regular photography camera. So if we just let these photography cameras have the capabilities that they're fully capable of having, people aren't going to buy video cameras, and therefore they're going to spend less money, and we are going to receive less tax money as a result of that action. So here's what we're going to do. Your camera, just if it's the name camera, cannot record 30 minutes. It can record 29 minutes and 59 seconds. And at 30 minutes, that is now considered a video camera and has to be sold as such so that that retailer can charge, instead of whatever, $8,000 for your product, charge $12,000 or $15,000 for the product, and the federal government can receive their higher amount of money from that purchase. And it's not even, and it does something with the tax bracket or the tax on the actual piece of technology. Like, it's insane.
Is there a way to jailbreak it?
So there is a way to jailbreak it, but which I'll probably end up doing, but it's, it's like
probably voids the warranty or something.
Probably voids the warranty. Well, and it's not really, I guess, jailbreaking it, because you physically cannot change the setting because that's a federal regulation.
Yeah, so you have to go in and probably like redo the software or something.
Well, you can't do that. You have to buy, it is something called an external recorder. So it has to be a separate screen and everything. So there's a cord that goes into this separate recorder, and this little recorder, which might have, 4 or 5 terabytes of storage, whatever, then has a little screen, and then that little screen can go into your computer, and you can do it that way. And, that little recorder is like $500-$600 additionally. But it just seems so like overbearing.
There's got to be a lobbyist out there somewhere, that his job is he's hired by like Canon or Nikon or whoever, whatever manufacturer. And he's basically lobbying, of course, all these senators and congressmen. They're getting kickbacks. They're getting paid to make sure that, whatever regulation, runs that deal.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is that you were talking about a camera right now.
For sure.
But
take this beyond that.
But that is like half of the products that are sold or marketed in our country, like it could be better, or there could be better, for the consumer it could be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the last concern, because the number one concern is, how do we is graft.
My best interest
is and it's like you've always heard it said, it's like you've got these congressmen and senators that come into Washington or whatever. They're making what is $150,000 a year, whatever they make as their salary,
and somehow their net worth going in is minimal.
Just average Joe Blow.
For sure.
After a 20-year career in Washington, they're worth like $2.5 billion.
Yeah, it's
just stupid.
Yeah, and
I just pulled that number out of a hat, but it's crazy. There's no way you could make that on just your yearly salary.
No, it's mid-tens,
right? Because the fact that that's just common knowledge that just happens. If you're a senator, you're going to get rich
for sure.
There's a problem with that.
For sure. Like, let's just take that salary, add that up over a 20-year career, and if you were lucky enough to never have to spend a single dime that you ever made from that job to pay for living expenses in your life in general, if that whole $125,000 you got to save every single year, not spend a dime because your parents were hooking you up or whatever.
Right.
Do the math on that, add it up, and then multiply it by 10, and that's what their net worth is.
Right.
And it's not because they're hardworking, really like got these side gigs going on. It's because they're literally legislating our country into benefiting their interests.
Exactly. So like whatever defense manufacturer, they can get in bed with, or pharmaceutical company they can get in bed with, or agricultural product they can get in bed with.
And that is bipartisan.
It's across the board.
It's across the board.
Not Republican, not Democrats. That's one of the things I appreciate. I don't know that I'd vote for him necessarily, but I really appreciate RFK. And some of the stuff that he's talked about with that, because he's kind of just opened up Pandora's box with that.
Sure, yeah.
And of course, everybody kind of knew it was going on, but he's kind of said, okay, well, here's exactly how it's happening, and here's who's doing it. And so, and the problem is no problems are ever solved in this country, because there's way too much money at stake for the ruling class and for the elites.
Oligarchy, basically.
Yeah, for the oligarchy.
Yeah.
Because those problems in our society and those issues are making them way too much money.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, you can't ever actually have positive change or good things or address things that need to be addressed, because the status quo is just way too invested, in keeping it that way.
Yeah.
So
and it sucks too, because it's like most of these people that have the impact too, it's not because they're like, no, honestly, I'd love to buy a lake house for my family. It's like, I'd love to have a second yacht.
Yeah,
like
exactly, a second yacht. Yeah,
and then meanwhile, it's you force like a regular American family that's like trying to build something and do something cool, instead of just being able to do what they need to do with their cool piece of equipment that they saved and worked hard to get. Now, no, you can't meet your specific need with that. You got to, and I'm not just talking about this situation. It's across the board. Like you said, it's everything, dude. It might be like, I don't know. It could be.
Here's a perfect example of what you're talking about. In 2008, during the major financial crisis that we had, the last major recession that we had, which we're getting ready to go into a new one. Which I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole.
We go 2008.
Yeah, but 2008, we were going down into the recession, and what was it? It was the housing bubble, right?
Yeah.
Subprime mortgage crisis, and basically what was something happened in the country at that time that basically showed everyone, if you were really paying attention, what our country has become. And that is this. There were multiple banks, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. I can't, just basically all the top banks,
right,
but especially the ones that were heavy into the mortgage industry. They started to basically fail. Yeah. Right. Because all of all the subprime mortgages, and then you had all these people basically losing their homes. Yeah. And the banks were, right.
Losing. And people want to come for their money because the bank was going downhill, and the bank is like, oh, well, we don't have it.
Well, and I actually worked for Chase for a few years during that time, right before that. And
so that's why it all happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, they actually went. It was interesting because I got to see it on the ground level. They would take people. People had $40,000, $50,000 credit lines with Chase. As soon as they had to go in and contract because they didn't have enough. They literally didn't have enough capital to cover all of their
promissory notes, essentially.
Yeah, to cover their liabilities.
Yeah, for sure.
So they were they were just done, essentially. And so what they were going in and doing is they were contracting, which you're seeing that some right now. Yeah. And contraction is where like banks are saying, okay, we're reducing all risk. Zero risk, right? Yeah. Because they don't. So what they would do is they would go in, and people were losing their jobs right and left back in 2008, 2009. And I actually saw this. I had to talk to people about this on the phone. They would go in and they'd take somebody that had like a $40,000 or $50,000 credit line, and they had put like maybe $30,000 or $40,000 of that. They had a high credit utilization. Right. Yeah. Say like 80 or 90% of their credit utilization on a large credit card. They would go in there and they would take their credit line and reduce it to whatever their balance was.
Yeah, that's...
So basically they said, we are not going to lend you another dollar. Yeah. And every time they would make a payment, they would reduce it down to that. So no matter how much these people would pay their credit down, they still had 100% max utilization. Right. So it was,
at that point,
damaging their credit. Like even with making the payments, it was still damaging their credit.
It was damaging their credit and not opening them up to have like any kind of like emergency
buffer.
Backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Either, so.
But here's what's funny: those people had no backup. They had no like bailout.
They couldn't go, hey, government.
Guess who did have bailouts?
The banks.
Yeah, all those banks that were doing that took money, taxpayer money, on the bailouts. All of them did. Yeah, and it wasn't just them. It was. Auto manufacturers took bailouts. All these massive companies. What did they used to say? What did the Bush administration say?
Too big to fail.
What did the Obama administration say? Too big to fail, right? Yep. So these companies were too big to fail. We have to prop them up with tax.
And essentially what all these people are doing is taking backdoor money from the people that they're already hosing. Right.
So look at what's happened. Okay, so those are the big, giant companies, right? They're basically... the companies that the United States government has gotten in bed with. Yeah. The politicians have gotten in bed with, right? Yep. So they can't fail.
No, because then the politicians financially fail.
Because then the politicians don't have their campaign.
Then they're back to only making 125.
Then they're not going to get reelected, right?
For sure.
Because, but look at all the small businesses during that period of time or during COVID that did fail.
But it didn't matter because those people didn't own.
But did they? Exactly. Did they get a bailout? The small business guys, the guys like me and
small business guys got a loan,
right?
But not a bailout,
right? There's no equality in our economy because you can be a small business and be allowed to fail. And in fact, when you do start to fail as a small business, the government comes in and they're like, we're going to get ours. You're going to get audited. They're going to come after every penny they can possibly scrape out of you. They're not going to make it easier on you. They're not going to help you. They're going to actually like put the screws to you when you start to fail. Right. That's pretty much standard operating procedure.
There is no benefit in you staying open, because
you're not providing kickbacks to the people on top.
Right.
and to the elite.
Because even if you are like writing checks to the government for however much money based off of what your small business is making, it doesn't matter, because those checks are actually going. Yeah, those peanuts are actually going into the like federal government coffers, which actually will go and pay for programs and things like that. It's not lining pockets of the people that are the middleman filtering this lobbyist money from point A to point B, which just...
But that just goes to show you, and RFK has talked about this. He's like, you know, our capitalist system is more like a crony capitalist system. It's like if you're in, you're good.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're not in, good luck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, hope you can squeak by.
I feel like that's kind of what you were getting at. What you were burning on with that.
Dude, it was big. I was burning on kind of big picture, and this was just a specific example of something that has like hit home right now. And from obviously there's times all the time where that hits home, but this was something that specifically applies to producing this podcast, which is that's we can't do it the way that we want to because of government regulations.
I think it's time for a serious like political overhaul in our country. We always like pride ourselves on being this like democracy and having, you know, man, I don't know. I think that's how we started, but we're so far down the rabbit hole from that.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think we're ever going back. I heard somebody say that we are a corporate.
I feel like our government, like how things are run in our country, is a lot closer to like how it is in Russia than it is like to our original founding.
It's I've heard it two ways, like an oligarchy, which is essentially whatever, 8 or 10 businesses and the families that own those businesses or manage those businesses at the very top. So you could look at it that way, or you could look at it as I heard actually Theo Vaughn, he called it a corporate communism, like the past couple weeks, which is like
pretty good. Yeah,
it's pretty on the money, dude.
Yeah, because like at the top, it's socialism, right?
Yeah.
Because if you start to fail, or if you need some money passed out from the government and the taxpayers, by all means,
you'll have
it is.
Yeah.
But it's like corporate socialism, because if you're a huge corporation, then you get the socialist benefit, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just like one of the small guys, then it's like, oh no, you have to play fair, we're not there for you.
And for sure, and the federal government is very much a necessity as the face of these corporations. All they are is the face of these corporations, and a lot of Americans, I mean, you saw this through all the COVA stuff, like people trust that face,
right?
Because that they're telling us this. They have our best interest in mind.
Oh,
we have to trust this face.
Yeah.
When it's all it is that is not your governing body. Well, it is your governing body, but it's not who you think it is. It's not who you voted for in November. It is the person that is providing your cell phone service and delivering you your groceries and through or delivering you everything that you order online. And it is the person that holds your mortgage or the person that owns the property that your rent is going to pay for.
Right.
It's those things. That's the people that literally own your government. And then the people that you checked a box and say, hey, I'm voting for this guy or this
I think
girl.
RFK called it a corporate kleptocracy.
Corporate kleptocracy.
Kleptocracy. So klept is thievery.
Okay.
So it's basically like I mean, I don't know. Yeah, you could probably call it a couple different things, but I definitely agree that the playing field is not level at all.
Yeah,
As a small business owner, I better make sure that I am crossing my T's and dotting my I's and not messing up a single thing.
Because you won't get a break.
And if we go under, there's no bailout. There's no help. Too bad.
It's on you.
Yeah, and that's the way it is with most small business owners in this country. Thank God for perseverance, I guess,
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to have it. And the thing is that, like, I'd say the vast majority of small business owners and people looking to build something and do something, they aren't looking for a handout, but they would love a fair shake.
Yeah.
Like
a level playing surface.
Yeah, exactly, dude, for sure. Like, let's not make the ice thicker on this end than it is over here.
Not trying to blow my hammy out on this playing surface.
Yeah, for sure. I don't need that elevation change. That's no good at all. Anyway, that was the idea. It's just crazy, man. You know,
that's good. That's good. It's good to burn on that because, I mean, I think more and more people need to open their eyes up to kind of what is actually going on in our country. It's nice to just get into your like comfort zone and be like, yeah, everything's great.
Right.
America, democracy, you know, but it's like if you peel the onion back a little bit and really start to see how things are shaped in our country and see who's controlling everything, it should shake everybody to the core because that's where tyranny that's how it gets its root.
It seeps in. Yeah. And it is seeping in.
Oh, big time.
And it's just that's I guess the way she goes, dude, in the words of
it's the way of the road.
It's the way of the road. It's the way she goes, dude.
That was a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Let me check this.
You got it.
Oh, dude, we better boogie, man. All right, real quick. We've got 8 minutes. Will you set a timer for 8 minutes? That's all the time that we have left to record. Because, yeah. All right, 8 minutes real quick, dude, for a real fast pick 3. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, you want to restart that? I was reading an email from a customer.
Yeah. Oh, dadgummit, I actually stopped the